everyone, this is Shannon. Welcome back to my channel, Grow Roots. Happy Saturday. Today is Saturday and I was just taking a look through the backyard garden and doing some maintenance and just wanted to capture this real quick, the desert rose plant that I have. I wanted to talk a little bit about it that I don't get to talk about in my garden tour, and I just am amazed by how big it has gotten and how it's grown, and I just love this plant. So really quick, desert rose is also called Adenium, and I got this plant on accident. I actually didn't know what a desert rose was. I had never heard of it. I had never known anybody who had grown it until the summer before last. I picked up a plant from Home Depot or Lowe's, and it was labeled, I think it was labeled as a diplodenia, and it was very, very tiny. It was like one of those small seedling plants that you get, and I don't know, it was $5.99, maybe $6.99. And I planted it in a pot in the front that gets full sun, and as it grew, it, got more flowers, and I realized that this isn't a diplodenia, and when I looked it up on a plant ID app, it ID'd it as desert rose. And so I am in zone 8A in North Texas, and this plant is not going to survive being outside in our winter. So twice now I have overwintered it inside my house, and each time it just gets bigger and bigger. And when I posted a picture of this last year on a desert rose gardening forum on Facebook, I guess you could say it was looked down upon, my picture, because they said, well, the trunk is not very large because this is a cutting, this is not like a seedling. And desert rose, if you're familiar, they usually have these huge bulbous trunks, and because mine was a cutting, it didn't have that. But I didn't care. It's a beautiful plant, it's lovely. But I am noticing, and I decided to let it go one more summer's worth of growth, but I'm gonna move this out of the way. You can see if you dig down to some of those roots that are down there, it's got the bulb right there, and the trunk is growing thicker and thicker every year as well. And so I'm gonna probably this late winter, I'll of course take it inside for the winter. And the first winter it shed all of its leaves. This past one, it did not shed all of its leaves, and as a matter of fact, it continued to flower a little bit, not like this, over the winter inside my house. I had it under a grow light this time though, and maybe that's the difference. But yeah, I mean, this time in late winter, I'm gonna dig this up. You can dig these up, expose this bulbous root, if you can see, and then replant it so that, that bulb right there is further up. It's actually exposed to the air, and then you can keep doing that and keep doing that to create like a bigger bulb. And there's a way to split the roots if you want, wrap the roots around to make interesting, like a bonsai type of thing. But I don't know if I'm gonna do that. We'll see what happens when I actually get in there and see what it looks like. But I just wanted to do a quick video on this. I just love it so much, and I think it's such a treasure that I only spent about $6 on this plant, and now 2 years later it's just something amazing like this. One more thing to note is this is a new pot for it. I did repot it into this large terracotta, but okay, not really. I didn't repot it. I kept the original pot and I put it inside here because I wanted one more season of growth before I decided to do what I was going to do. So I just put it in this big one, and then this surrounding area that I had free, I thought that'd be a good area to grow my strawberries. I already had strawberries that overwintered really, really well, and they overwintered outside, by the way. They did fantastic. And I thought, oh, I'll just transplant them here. And now it's probably a very unique, I don't know if anybody's ever done this before, but just know that companion planting desert rose is actually pretty pretty good. It grows fairly well with strawberries all along the side of it. I think it looks kind of pretty, and it's not, the strawberry did send out one shoot. This one over here, I've already taken care of it. It rooted right here and I just took that out and I put it right there. And then this one rooted in there, but then it shot out another plant here, and this one was just falling over the edge and it's not rooted yet. So this one is rooted, and that one I'll just make sure to keep watered, and that one will feed this one, and this one will get rooted, and I will get 2 new strawberry plants out of this guy, which I've gotten lots of strawberry plants even last year. So I just wanted to show you real quick something I forgot to mention about the desert rose is last year, which was my second summer, my desert rose produced seed pods for me, and I was able to collect some seeds from the seed pod. I'll see if I can find a picture and post what those seed pods look like, but you basically wait for those seed pods to mature and dry out on the plant. You kind of need to wrap something around the seed pod because once it matures, it'll pop open, and then all of the seeds have like these wispy things that will float in the wind, and you'll lose your seeds if you don't put something around them to catch them. And so that's what I did. I was able to get, I think I was able to get about 20 seeds, and I only tried to grow 10 of them in the late winter, early spring, and to be honest, only one of the seeds actually germinated and produced for me. That's okay, because here's what it looks like. So this is only, I did this in late winter, so probably February. Let's see, March, April, May, June, July. This is only 5-month-old seedling, and I've managed to keep it alive. It's out here in the full sun, and I have to say, for a seedling, it's a rock star. Like, I know that I've overwatered it. I also know that I have underwatered it. It's kind of hard to pay attention to something like this. I also brought it inside when we went on vacation, and it dealt with the fluctuation in sunlight really well. This plant is so cool. I'm really excited because this one actually will have that thick bulbous chunk that they're famous for, and I will be able to kind of create this huge bulb that people who collect desert rose really love. So that's my baby, and I love it, and I hope to get more this year. So how do you care for a desert rose plant? So first of all, desert rose is also called Adenium Obesum, and it is not a rose despite its name. And some people also think it's a bonsai because of the way that they train the bulbous root to come out of the soil. But it is actually a succulent, and it is also deciduous. And a lot of people do grow it as a house plant, but I will say it will not bloom like this if it is kept as a house plant. Desert rose plants love full sun and lots of heat. As a matter of fact, they like the temperatures to be between 70 degrees and 100 degrees. And I can also say that it can withstand 110, maybe even 115 degrees, because that is what we've had here in North Texas in the summers that it's been with me in the last 2 summers. So, and I've also put it out after the danger of the last frost. I probably have waited, I think I've waited until the temperatures did not go below like 45 degrees at night before I put this guy out after wintering it in my home. And it's done just fine with temperatures that dip into the high 40s and low 50s. It's been okay, as long as it gets warmer during the day. For the potting soil, it definitely needs like a succulent potting soil with good drainage, like pumice, sand, things like that. Although I will say, before I repotted this in late winter this year, I didn't know how to take care of this plant, and it was potted in a regular generic potting soil, and it did just fine for me for 1 season. But then when I repotted it, I used succulent potting soil. So, and I think I added some sand to that as well. I think I did like 25% sand and 25% succulent potting soil, and it's doing fantastic. In terms of watering, I have read that you really only need to water this plant for maybe once every 2 to 3 weeks. Although I have this hooked up to a really small, well, actually, no, it's not. It drains back down though. I have this hooked up to irrigation, and right now, because of the heat, this is going off every other day. And like I said, it's really good draining soil, and there's soil underneath this pot that it drains into to kind of give the strawberries some water. And it's doing just fine. Perhaps that is why it seems the flowers have those little spots on them. I don't remember them having it last year. You could see like the fresh flowers don't really have those spots, and then as the flowers get older, this is the first time I've seen this, there's those little like pink spots. That could be telling me it's getting a little bit too much water. And this plant is susceptible to root rot. But so far I have not seen any signs of that. Wow, look at it. I don't think that this plant has root rot right now with how well it is blooming, and I'm watering it every other day. But once every 2 to 3 weeks is supposed to be the way to go. And also, as far as fertilizing, it does need a lot of nitrogen. This is a high nitrogen loving plant, so apply high nitrogen fertilizer before each blooming period. It has 2 blooming periods, so I'm told. Not quite my experience, but it's supposed to have a blooming period in early spring, and that is when this one started blooming, but this is definitely the peak of its blooming season, and it is, I would call this almost midsummer. So do your high nitrogen fertilizer in early spring before those blooms come, and then this is supposed to kind of die off a little bit, and it will, and then it'll bloom again, but much lower blooming in the early fall. So give it another high nitrogen fertilizing before early fall. And it's also super easy to propagate this plant. Well, again, not my experience being super easy, but a lot of people who really know this plant are very easily able to propagate it with cuttings. Be careful, wear gloves, because the sap that is produced when you cut this plant is toxic to humans, dogs, cats, horses, highly toxic. So wear gloves so you don't get the sap on your hands in any way. And, definitely because it's toxic, try to keep it away from dogs and children and cats or horses if you have horses out and about. But my experience, my dogs don't go near it. It's also kind of high off the ground. And the children in my care, they don't really touch it either. So, I mean, I do watch them for sure, just to make sure. But it's been just fine so far. And lastly, just talking about pests. Desert rose can be subject to a variety of pests, and I've seen most of them on this list on this plant. So aphids can get a hold of this plant for sure, and I've seen that, and I think all I did for the aphids was wash them off or get them with my gardening glove and squish them. And I didn't really see, I didn't see a whole lot of aphid activity. And that was last year when I saw the aphid activity, not this year. This year, though, I did see spider mites, especially in the spring and early summer. And I don't really see any evidence of spider mites on this plant right now at all. The sun's coming out, guys, sorry. But there was definitely some spider mites going on, and I did have to spray it with Captain Jack's dead bug. And then 7 days later, I sprayed it again with Captain Jack's dead bug. I've also water sprayed it to get rid of the spider mites that way too. But those 2 doses of Captain Jack's was all I needed. And it's bounced back and has done remarkably well. The other pest that this plant can get is mealybugs. And goodness, I wish I had wood to knock on wood right now, but I have not had a problem with mealybugs. Thank the Lord, I have not had those in my garden at all. And also just watch it for root rot. If you are watering it more often than every 2 to 3 weeks, just be careful and watch it. And that is pretty much it. I mean, it's a fairly easy plant for me to care for, and so worth the time, and it's just beautiful.